Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Robbins, and I get the honor and privilege to serve behind the scenes in several facets of IndyCar ministry. This week, we're continuing our journey through our Wednesday Wisdom Race to Rome through the book of Romans. And this week, we're once again in Romans chapter 4, and we're going to kind of pick up where Chuck left off last week. But he helped us to continue to understand how we're made right with God because of what Jesus has done for us, and only because of what he's done for us. Essentially, how we're made righteous by our faith in Jesus. And so what Paul is getting at here in this chapter is that righteousness only comes by faith. And he gives us two very relevant, but very what I call kind of polar opposite examples that we kind of put ourselves in two different camps of. But the first example, the one that he spends the most time on, is the example of Abraham. And so in Abraham's case, his righteousness was by faith in God's promises, essentially trust or belief in God doing what he says he will do. And so Abraham lived his life and behaved in such a way that showed that he believed or trusted in those promises. Now, if there's anyone we've read in the Bible, and this is just my opinion, but if there's anyone who would ever be able to stand on their own works, it would be Abraham. Yet Paul levels the ground and says that it was simply by Abraham's faith or trust in God's promises that he was made right. And then he kind of flips the script here a little bit and goes to David and just kind of goes to the other side of the spectrum here. A lot of us know the story of David, where he started out as a shepherd boy and was chosen by God to defeat Goliath. And then David has a pretty horrific moral failure at one point in his life, where he chooses to steal another man's wife and then has that man killed in battle to cover up his decision. Yet Paul just levels it right back out again and tells us that David, that he too was considered righteous because of his faith. And so Paul is essentially leveling the ground out here and telling us that both of these men were counted righteous by God. And he's saying that Abraham's good works didn't count him as righteous, nor did David's bad works disqualify him from being righteous. And that it's just simply by faith and faith alone that we are made right with God. And so it's never too late. But the verses that stand out the most to me in this writing about Abraham's faith are verses 20 and 21, where Paul writes, "No unbelief made him waver concerning the promise of God, but he grew strong in his faith as he gave glory to God, fully convinced that God was able to do what he had promised." So it makes me wonder, in my life and even in your life, what is it that you've given up hope on ever changing? What is it that essentially you've lost faith in God ever reconciling or redeeming for you, or even for someone else? Maybe it's a health issue, a disease, or a sickness, or something, an addiction that you or someone you love is dealing with. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's a job that you feel like is a grind and you're stuck in it, and you're always maybe squabbling or quarreling with your coworkers. Maybe it's a rebellious child, or even a friend or a family member who's far from God. That's just, you're watching them destroy their life. Maybe it's your marriage, your spouse. Things are not good. You're on the brink of divorce, or you don't talk anymore. You don't play together, whatever it might be. There are so many things that could be on your mind right now. And Jesus tells us, as Mark records in Mark 9:23, that all things are possible for the one who believes. And so your faith has power. Your faith has authority, not because of anything you've done or can do, but all because of what Jesus has done. God has granted you that because he loves you. What that doesn't necessarily mean is that the person or circumstances that you're thinking about, they may or may not change. It could. But it can also mean that the circumstances might stay the same or even have minor change, yet you or someone else might have perfect peace amidst them, and be able to still give glory to God amidst those circumstances. And even as we read here in this verse, you can still be fully convinced that God is able to do anything. You've been forgiven and made righteous by what Jesus has done for you. So take those things to your Father and talk to him about them. Ask him. I'm praying this message moves you deeper into faith in Jesus this week. Thanks for joining me for this week's Wednesday Wisdom.